I was about to ask if we were doing that.
Well, we streamed last week and it went fine, so let's try it again and hope that the same thing happens. All right, I'm gonna start recording. What's going on, everybody? The XFL regular season is over. The playoffs are here, and in just a few short days, we will know who is playing in the XFL 3.0 championship on May 13th out in San Antonio. Welcome back to another episode of Booth Review. As always, I'm your host, Devin Primrose, joined by the Sultan of Spice himself, Mr. Peter Strauss. What is going on, man?
Not much of another fantastic week of XFL action
There
that I
was some
didn't
good
get to
games.
catch very much of, but regardless, um, pretty much every team tried their very best to either get done what needed to get done or to
Yeah,
stop the other team from getting done what needed to get done. Um,
every team that
surprising
every team that needed a win put their best foot forward and did what they had to do.
for sure, and like I don't know where this Guardians team has been all season long. Like all of a sudden they beat DC and then were like good and just couldn't get wins. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it
um
works out that way sometimes, and maybe it's something to build on for next year. If you keep a lot of those guys around, who knows what happens? But yeah, it's nice to see them kind of figuring things out, even though it is a little too late. Again, hopefully for next year, it's a little bit of a building block.
yeah. I mean it made it interesting for week 10 for sure, which doesn't always happen in a league this small. There's not a lot of playoff scenarios that happen, and with
Yeah,
Orlando already being eliminated, they could have just like not tried and just let St. Louis roll all over them. And I mean, St. Louis did beat them by a lot, but they still put up a heck of a fight.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And I mean, shout out to St. Louis with what they did, man. I mean, we might as well honestly at this point just jump into my best of the booth. So I'm gonna do it. My best of the booth obviously has to go to the man that is probably gonna win XFL MVP. I don't know if they're doing MVP. They announced the awards today that they're doing, and MVP wasn't listed. It was just Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Special Teams Player of the Year, which I guess I'm okay with that, but I just feel weird not having like an overall MVP. But regardless, if there is an MVP, he should get it. If not, he should definitely get Offensive Player of the Year, and that is AJ McCarron because he had one hell of a day on Saturday. AJ McCarron went 28 of 35, which for all of you non-math people out there is 80% completion percentage. 80% for 420 yards and not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but six touchdowns. A ridiculous day. St. Louis needed every single point that they could get, and they dropped a 53 burger on the Guardians. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough because of what the Sea Dragons were able to do the next day in their victory, and they also gave up 28 points to the Guardians, which didn't help their case either. So it did happen to fall down to some tiebreaker scenarios with Seattle, which does suck for St. Louis because they had a heck of a showing. They had a heck of a season. They finished 7-3. You lose 3 games and you miss the playoffs because that's the XFL. It's only 8 teams. But hats off to you, St. Louis. Hats off to you, AJ McCarron, for a heck of a season, a heck of a season finale. I remember, I believe it was one of our, it might have been the first legit or counterfeit, was is AJ McCarron going to be, I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, but you said something along the lines of, will AJ McCarron be one of the best quarterbacks at the end of the season? And I said counterfeit because I did not think that he would be in comparison to some of those other names, but he had a heck of a season, capped it off with a heck of a game on Saturday. Hats off to him. absolutely best of the booth, AJ McCarron.
Yeah, I mean, they were told tiebreaker scenario, we need to score as many points as possible, and there's not much more they could have done.
No, there's not.
Um,
The only thing they could have done is stepped up some on defense and shut out the Guardians a little bit more. That's the only thing they could have done.
yeah, but I mean, Hakeem Butler setting a record this game too, 9 receptions for 164 yards and 2
Yep.
touchdowns.
Yep.
And then we almost had another 100-yard receiver with Darius Shepard, who I've liked a lot of the season and has some pretty good showings on special teams too. I'm pretty sure he
Yes.
returns he's like their punter, kick returner.
That sounds right.
But he had 6 receptions for 96 yards and a touchdown. And the other notable, Stephen Mitchell, 4 receptions, 72 yards and 2 touchdowns as well.
Yeah.
Like they put their heart out in their game in this game. But I mean, the Guardians fought back, and I don't know why. They were playing around with their quarterbacks. We saw some Quentin Dormady, we saw some DeAndre Francis. Neither team really got a running game going. Yeah, it was just a crazy game. Honorary best of the booth, I would say. So, watching the highlights, Mac Brown, the punter for the Guardians,
Yeah.
was incredible. So, first of all, they ran 2 fake punts. The second one, he took a big hit as he threw the ball and didn't work out, but he still took that hit like a champ.
Yeah.
The first one, though, 84-yard touchdown pass as the punter on a fake punt. Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible stuff. And as an extra bonus, one of the times that they did actually punt it, he like destroyed a guy outside. Like they got to the sideline, stepped out of bounds, probably should have been a penalty, and just took him out.
Yeah.
And almost got in a fight with the entire St. Louis bench and got a penalty like thrown on him that offset a different penalty. Just incredible to see that from a punter. You haven't really seen that from a punter since Pat McAfee.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I mean I think St. Louis did absolutely everything they could. I mean, they put on a show, especially on the offensive side, tried to run up the scoreboard as much as they could. They knew what they had to do, and it sucks that they fell a little bit short. But Sea Dragons took care of business on Sunday and did exactly what they had to do as well. So I hate that it came down to those two teams fighting for one spot because, in my opinion, both of them deserve to be in the playoffs. The Renegades, the fact that they got in is garbage, but it's the way that it worked out, just divisional alignment, which sucks, but is what it is.
Yeah, and I'm going to go to my best of the booth here because my best of the booth is on the team that beat the only other team that had a chance to take that spot from the Renegades.
Yeah.
The DC Defenders beat the Brahmas by 1 point, and I'm giving best of the booth to the DC receiving core.
Hey.
So we don't talk about DC receivers much. I think we've talked about Lucky Jackson in the past, but DC is more well known for their rushing attack with Abram Smith, who's been kind of absent the last couple of weeks, but they're in the playoffs. Rest him. You need him this week.
Yeah.
And Jordan Tiamu, I think this is his highest that he's thrown for, 15 of 22 for 271, 2 TDs and a pick. But a lot of that was on the back of their receivers who had some monster yards after the catch. That's not a stat that they show on here, but just to kind of give you an idea, Lucky Jackson, 3 receptions for 84 yards, one of them being 52-yard. Pretty much caught the ball, duck, and ran, got about to the 1 or 2 yard line. Chris Blair, 1 catch for 70 yards, also down to like the 1 or 2 yard line on that.
Yeah.
Alex Ellis was kind of their closer. He had 4 catches for 25 yards, but 2 of those were for touchdowns. Josh Hammond had a tight catch for one of their conversions. Something I've noticed about the DC Defenders, I think we know they're dominant because they play well, but they convert like their 2-point conversions, whatever.
Yeah.
Way more than anyone else in the league. And part of that is because they're close, like within 10 yards, they're unstoppable because you think Jordan Ta'amu's going to run it, and the receivers are just good enough to squeeze in there and catch it if they have to throw it. So,
Yeah.
Josh Hammond, 4 catches, 59 yards, and a conversion. Brandon Smith had a one-handed catch again on the 1-yard line.
Yeah.
So 2 catches, 29 yards, and also a 2-point conversion. These guys were just incredible and destroyed the dreams of the San Antonio Brahmas.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to my under review in a second because it comes from this game. But DC, they absolutely killed it. The receivers have been a little. I would say they've been a little looked over this year. I like you said, we have talked about Lucky Jackson before, and I think a lot of the reason they've been looked over is because of Ta'amu's passing game for at least the front half of the season wasn't there. And they focused so much on the run and Abram Smith getting out there, which Abram Smith, he's been fine. He's been solid. He has been a little absent over the last couple of weeks, which is okay. If he shows up again next week, that's what matters the most. But I do think that the fact that we haven't talked about them is due to Ta'amu not being the passer that we expected him to be going into the season. But I think that team is kind of offensively rounding out to where they're becoming more of a balanced attack. You don't quite know if it's going to be the Abram Smith show. You don't quite know if it's going to be the Ta'amu on the ground show, or if it's going to be the Ta'amu through the air show, or if it's going to be the Lucky Jackson show. Like that bodes well going into the playoffs, especially when your defense has kind of been slipping. DC's defense, I feel like really ever since that game against Orlando, hasn't quite been the same. And they definitely didn't do them any favors in this game against a bad San Antonio team that probably should have lost, but they probably should have lost by way more than 1 point. So the state of the defense is worrisome for me moving into the playoffs. But like I said, with the offense rounding out, I think the offense has become just so elite that they can win even when the defense falters.
Fun fact about DC, you talk about their defense slipping a little bit. So week 6, they beat the Houston Roughnecks by 11 points.
Okay.
Week 7, they lose to the Guardians by 1 point.
Yep.
Since then, their plus differential, because they've won all 3 games, weeks 8, 9, and 10, combined 4 points more than their opponents.
Yeah, it's been way too close. Too close.
With like the Sea Dragons, I understand.
Sure.
The Renegades, awful. Horrible.
The Brahmas, awful.
The Brahmas, awful.
The Guardians,
horrible.
awful.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if teams have figured something out in the film. I don't know if somebody got hurt.
Maybe.
I don't know what's going on there. But still, I mean, they only lost the 1 game, and they're got some kept their starters on the field this week and got some momentum heading into the playoffs. So
yeah. Well, on the other side of the ball, my under review is just the Brahmas' entire team, and that's really because of the fact that this is a game the Brahmas needed to win. It was a situation. It wasn't necessarily win and get in, but a win coupled with a Renegades loss, which was likely due to their opponent being the Roughnecks. The Brahmas would have made the playoffs, which I don't like a scenario in which either the Brahmas or Renegades made the playoffs, but that's the position that we were in. And San Antonio, credit to them, did almost everything they needed to do to get the win. And they just came up a little bit short, but they had a 6-point lead with 5 minutes left in that game. All you had to do was play defense. Ball out on defense, stop DC. You win the game. You're up by 6, 5 minutes left. They couldn't do that. They allowed DC to go up by 1 with 2.5 minutes left. Okay. You got about 2.5 minutes left. Go drive down the field. Get yourself a field goal at the very least. Get yourself a touchdown. Whatever you got to do. They were driving, and they were around the 35-yard line. They had a 3rd and 3 with 37 seconds left. 3rd and 3. Plenty of time still on the table. All you gotta do is pick up the first down. What do? They try a deep pass. They did not connect. So a failed 3rd-and-3 deep pass with 37 seconds left was a terrible call, and it led to a 53-yard field goal try with the season on the line. Now, their kicker has been one of the better kickers on the season, but unfortunately, he missed this one from 53 yards, just a little bit to the right. It's unfortunate. Like you had yourself in a position to win this game, a game that most people would not have given you any kind of chance in winning, and they just made some dumb decisions down the stretch. They couldn't play defense. They couldn't stop DC. They made that terrible call on 3rd-and-3. The field goal just to the right. Like it just they're this close. They were this close to making it happen and forcing the Renegades to ball out on Sunday, and they couldn't do it. So that's why I have to put them under review. I want to give them credit for making it a close game because nobody thought they would. But when you find yourself in a position with 5 minutes left to win the game and you can't do it, I've got to put you under review.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shame. I mean, Jack Cohn threw the ball 48 times. Like, he was trying his best. 34 of 48. It's not a math podcast, but it's, in the 60s, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
312 yards. Only got sacked twice. Just the kid played his heart out. Where was this in the middle part of the season? Again. But putting that game in the hand of the kicker, I would have gone for it, honestly. Like,
I might have gone for it too. With it being 53 yards, I might have gone for it too because
I know their kicker, he had only missed one field goal before then, and he's made field goals that long.
Yeah.
But when you have time, especially when you get a first down, the clock stops anyway. Take the chance and get a little closer, even if you don't get the touchdown.
I don't understand throwing a deep pass on 3rd-and-3 to make it 4th-and-3. Like, that makes no sense to me. I understand, like, taking a shot at the end zone with on first down, maybe even on second down, but on 3rd-and-3, all you have to do is you just run it up the gut. Scramble to the outside, Jacko, and, like, do something.
Yeah, at least they should have called a short pass, and they might have stacked the box there. Yeah. Their rushing game wasn't really getting there. Their lead rusher, Jacques Patrick, 16 carries for 41 yards, less than a 3-yard average. So they might not have trusted the run game there, but maybe not a deep shot.
Fair, I guess.
But regardless, disappointing for the Brahmins there. Speaking of disappointment, every team, whether they were in the playoffs or not, except for Roughnecks and Arlington, because both teams were in at that point, and they play each other next week for the playoff spot. So I get them not wanting to make that, like, not caring if that game's exciting or not.
Sure.
But you look at the Brahmas and DC. DC is like, we can ruin the Brahmas season? Absolutely. You look at the Guardians. We can ruin the Battlehawks season? Absolutely. You look at the Vegas Vipers, and they were like, we're just done with the season. We just need to move on. We're over it. Just let the Sea Dragons roll all over them. And the Sea Dragons were going to win that game anyway. But you could have, if you made it close, like the Guardians were trying to do with the Battlehawks, then it could have changed who was in. But the Vipers, they started Jalen McClendon, who was only 6 for 21. For 201 yards. And one of those throws was to Matthew Sexton, who had an 84-yard catch that should have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
And this is really the thing that made me mad, because this happened in like the third or the fourth quarter. They're down 28-3. And they finally get a good play. Something good finally happens. And Matthew Sexton celebrates a little too early, and ball gets knocked out of his hand, goes out of the back of the end zone. And we've seen it happen in the NFL. But for this being the last game, like, you've seen these amazing games from the day before.
Yeah.
And you're down 28-3 in the fourth quarter. You're not the Patriots. This isn't happening for you. I'm sorry if Blake is listening to this and bringing that up, but and
Yeah.
what are you celebrating for?
Yeah.
What are you celebrating for? They are lucky they even got a touchdown after that, because the only reason they did was because the rule is different in the XFL. And Dean Blandino explained this, that they changed the rule because people didn't like that the defense got the ball if the defense didn't recover the ball. So they decided if the ball was out before they get to the end zone and it goes out the back of the end zone, the offense gets the ball at the 1 yard line. And that's the only reason they got the touchdown after that. Because Matthew Sexton couldn't keep it in his pants, essentially, is what happened there. Despite the fact that it didn't matter. Like, yeah, it was a cool play, but you haven't done doo-doo the rest of the game. I'm trying not to make you bleep me out right now, but it was just like yeah, congratulations. You had a catch that should have been a touchdown. Like 1 year. I don't know who you are. You haven't caught a pass the whole year, probably. I don't know. Nobody's looking at you and looking at that and being like, yep, that's the guy I want to bring to the NFL, Got some tape on this Matthew Sexton guy. I think he's real swell.
Yeah.
No. Garbage. Defense, Seattle's really good. I can't necessarily blame the defense, but your offense has clicked before and just for some reason didn't show up.
Yeah.
You weren't getting like any further down in like draft picks. Not that that matters in the spring leagues as much, but yeah. I don't know what was happening here. But you put a damper. It was the last game of the season and the regular season, and you guys made it suck. So,
well, we'll get to Vegas in a second when we get to. I don't know if you did your final power rankings. I did my final power rankings. We'll get to Vegas in a little bit.
But I wasn't sure if we were doing it because I didn't know if it mattered with teams in the playoffs or not.
Well, we'll just do it live. You'll just do it live.
I'm going to do some wild things.
Do we have a legit or counterfeit? If you don't, I have one for you.
Oh, well, let's switch it up.
Okay.
You do legit or counterfeit, and you also sing the jingle.
Oh, I'm not singing any jingle. I'm not. That's that ain't my job on here. So, my legit or counterfeit for you, I feel like it's going to be very easy. I feel like we're probably going to have the same exact answer on this. But my legit or counterfeit is obviously the best game of this coming weekend, the best divisional championship, is going to be the Seattle Sea Dragons versus the DC Defenders for the North Championship. My legit or counterfeit is the winner of the North Championship will win the XFL Championship. Legit or counterfeit?
I hope so. It would be a real bummer if we had to give that trophy to the Renegades or the Roughnecks.
Would it though? Because the Roughnecks started 4-0. Like they're not a terrible team.
Against bad teams.
Bad-ish teams. They're not a bad team.
They were bad at the start of the season.
That is true.
And I said kind of for legit or counterfeit because I was thinking like the South had this weird shift through the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden it looked like the Brahmas and Guardians are incredible. And it's like, why are we even watching the Roughnecks and the Renegades? Like any game they played was just boring the second half of the season. And I was going to be like, if we started the season week 5 and had the same schedule and had those lineups, would it have been different?
I mean, it might have been because I want to look up the standings real quick just to make sure of this, but the Roughnecks finished at 7-3. So after starting 4-0, they finished 3-3 over the next 6 weeks. So had it started after week 5, then it might be a different story in the South. You might be onto something.
Yeah, because you look at how the Guardians with Dormady just randomly decided we're going to beat the best team in the league and then make everybody else's life a living HE double hockey sticks. I don't know if that's a word that we're allowed to say.
I mean, so I said it earlier, so who cares?
But, and then the Brahmas realized in week 6, like, oh, we can still get in.
Yeah.
And went ahead and gave it a shot. And I'm like, man, I would much rather see that South matchup than the Roughnecks and the Renegades. Either of them. I would rather both Guardians and Brahmas be in the playoffs than the
Oh, I
Renegades.
don't know about that,
And
man.
at least,
The Roughnecks have more talent. Like they are still, they're not a bad team. Are
but they're
they?
boring.
I mean,
They're
I
boring.
won't disagree with that, but they're not a bad team, and like they deserve to be in the playoffs. The one team that doesn't is the Renegades. If the Renegades win on Saturday, oh man, the XFL championship is going to be a blowout. It's not going to be close. It just
I
won't
don't think
be.
it's going to be close with the Roughnecks either.
I don't entirely disagree with you. I'll say that, but I do think that the Roughnecks can give
And see,
either the Defenders or the Sea Dragons a little bit of trouble
you
if
say
things go their
that,
way.
but the Renegades just only lost the 2 points by the Defenders 2 weeks ago.
I mean, that is true.
The Roughnecks have not been that close with any team that's good. When they lost to St. Louis, it was by 9 points, so technically one possession. When they lost to the Sea Dragons, it was by 7 points, so still a whole touchdown. When they
I feel like I just don't know anything about the XFL. That's what I feel like. I feel like anything could happen this weekend, and who knows what the XFL championship is going to look like. I just know that the North has been far better than anybody in the South all year. That's between St. Louis, Seattle, and DC. They've just been killing it. And
yeah,
again, it's a shame St. Louis isn't in the playoffs in some capacity, but it is what it is. We get Seattle and DC. Those two teams are the two best teams in the league. And if one of them doesn't win the XFL championship, it's a dang shame. It really is. Because I don't think anybody from the South deserves it. But would I be surprised if the Roughnecks pull it off? I wouldn't be. But
I would.
I will say legit that the winner of the North will win the XFL championship.
I will also say legit. It's what I'm hoping. Again, just the Renegades and the Roughnecks are just boring and squeaked by in a division that just had slow teams.
Yeah.
I don't even want to call the Brahmas or the Guardians bad anymore. I think they were just slow.
Well, at
They
that
put
rate,
up a
let's just jump into the power rankings then, my friend. I'll kick it off. In the 8th spot, you said everything there was to say about them in your under review, and I'm putting the Vegas Vipers at 8 because they essentially gave up on the season. They were bad all season, gave up down the stretch, and so you know what? You get the bottom of the barrel. You are the worst of the worst. You suck. You stink. Here's to next year. Hopefully you find a new stadium. Hopefully you relocate because what a garbage team. What a garbage team with a garbage stadium. You're terrible. 8th spot. Who you got as your 8th spot?
Myrtle Beach could use an XFL team. We don't have a stadium though.
It'd be fun.
We don't have a stadium though.
Just put them at the Pelicans field. That's what they did. Put them on a baseball field in Vegas. Garbage.
Yeah. I also Vipers. I predicted this last week. I put the Vipers at 8th, and I was correct.
That is true.
Vipers are still at 8th. God, I really want to be wild with 7. And just because I don't think the Renegades and the Roughnecks deserve to be higher, but they're the ones that made the playoffs. So, yeah, I'm going to keep it's harder to put the Guardians above the Brahmas, too, just because they both played close games this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to keep the Guardians at 7. I don't like it. I think now they're potentially better, or at least even with the rest of the South teams, but you got to go with
I can
at
agree
this
with
point
that.
tiebreakers.
Yeah.
Just like the playoffs have tiebreakers, my power rankings have tiebreakers, and they have the worst record. So
yeah, I also have the Guardians at 7. I think it's more due to their defense because the offense has definitely come alive down the stretch, but the defense has been so bad. So
yeah,
I've got to put the Guardians at 7, and at 6, I'm putting the Arlington Renegades. I don't care if they made the playoffs. I'm putting them there because they're stinky poo poo. They're garbage, which means that, all of you people counting at home, I'd put the Brahmas above the Renegades. We'll get to them in a second, but the Renegades at 6 feels right.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Brahmas should be in the playoffs. It came down to a field goal, and that's upsetting. Like, yeah, they should have played better the rest of the season, but
They put up more of a fight against a far superior team. So
yeah.
I've got to put them there.
Yeah, I wish the Brahmas made it in instead of the Renegades, but it is what it is. Renegades at 7,
Renegades
Brahmas
at
at
6.
6. Yeah, Renegades at 6, Brahmas at 5.
That's exactly what I have. I have the Brahmas at 5. Um, again, because they put up more of a fight in a meaningful game than the Renegades did against a worse team. So, give me the Brahmas at 5. At 4 is the Houston Roughnecks because they are while they're still in the top half, they're the worst of the top half. So, got to put them at 4.
Honestly, the amount of space between number 4 and number 3, like, because we talked about it, like we thought it was split down the middle. It's not.
I agree.
There's three like amazing teams, and then there's 5. They're either mediocre
Well,
or they just can't close it.
I would say there's 3, then there's 1, and then there's 4. I would put the bottom 4 pretty all. Let me rephrase that. There's 3, there's 1, there's 3, then there's like 50 feet of crap, and then there's the last one. But the Renegades, the Brahmas, and the Guardians, I'm okay grouping together to where, like, I think all those 3 teams are very similar. They all have the capacity to be good. They've all had good performances at times, especially down the stretch. But they have all ultimately come up just short in a lot of meaningful games. So those 3 I'm good putting together. The Roughnecks I have as just a tier above them, and then the 3 at the top are in a whole different bracket.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who you got at 3?
3, I have the St. Louis Battlehawks. Again,
Dang.
them and the Sea Dragons, it's tough. Like, you can put them either 1 and 2. It sucks that we have to watch the Renegades and the Roughnecks and not have the Battlehawks in the playoffs.
Yes.
And they did everything they could. They scored 53 points.
That was the most points scored in a game this year.
But unfortunately, it wasn't enough to stay ahead of the Sea Dragons. So,
yeah.
Battlehawks at 3. And then I have the Sea Dragons at 2.
Yeah.
Even though, like we said, all of DC's games have been close, they've still kept the pressure on. So,
yeah,
Sea Dragons at 2.
It's exactly the same order that I have it in. The only reason I have the Sea Dragons a step above them is because of the fact that they made it into the playoffs and the Battlehawks didn't. It's tough choosing between those 2. I think they're they're 2 very similarly matched teams. I think they're both very good, and hopefully these teams are able to retain most of their players, and next year come out with a bang and look just as good. Hopefully, but we'll see who gets a chance to play at the next level in the NFL, who stays behind, who maybe makes a jump over to the USFL. There's all kinds of variables, so we'll see what happens. But yeah,
what's the USFL? Weird.
the Battlehawks at 3, the Sea Dragons at 2, and obviously, last but not least, the DC Defenders at 1. They lost 1 game, and they lost it by 1 point. To put them anywhere else besides first would be a crime at this point. So, yeah, DC at 1.
Yeah, same here. Not much to really talk about there. Even though all of their games have been close, they still managed to squeak out those wins.
Yep.
And they've beat the Sea Dragons twice, so
yep.
3rd time's the charm, maybe. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Well, I say we put the regular season in the rear view and turn our attention to playoff football. The division championships are this weekend. And I say it's time that we get picky with it, man.
Na 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 na. Let's get picky with it. Na 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 na. Let's get picky with it.
Yeah.
That's it. You just get to.
Starting us off at 7 p.m. over on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus, we have the Arlington Renegades making their way down south about 4 hours to Houston to take on the Houston Roughnecks. The Renegades finished the season at 4-6, below 500, barely making it into the playoffs. The Roughnecks had a hot start, started 4-0, and then went 500 down the last 6 games to finish the season at 7-3. But here we sit because the South was such a terrible division, and we get this bum of a matchup for a South Division championship. Houston, 6.5 point favorites at home. I think that's fair. This Renegades team is stinky poo poo. Tickets for this game, by the way, are as low as $14 for some reason. It's a division championship game, and it's $14 because Houston fans don't know how to show up to watch their team. So go buy some dang tickets, put your butts in the seats, go at least support your local Roughnecks or your Renegades team if you're from Arlington and want to make the drive for whatever reason to watch them get slaughtered. But again, the line, Houston 6.5 point favorites. I think that's 100% fair. You could probably bump that up to 10, in my opinion, because I think the Roughnecks are a far superior team, and that's why I'm picking Houston to get the job done, to book their ticket to San Antonio for the XFL championship. Who you got, man?
My prediction is that late in the fourth quarter, right? It's going to be like 0-0 because both teams are bad. And then the music hits. St. Louis comes out. They got the money in the bank briefcase, baby. Cash it in. That's what I want.
That would be incredible if that happened.
Just put them in. No, I'm gonna make it fun for us because you'll
pick the Renegades.
You'll be here.
I will. You'll
be here, and we may get an opportunity to watch this game together. So I might as well make it fun and just root against you.
Oh, don't do it. Don't put yourself through the agony of having to root for the Arlington Renegades.
They're gonna lose the next game anyway. It doesn't matter.
They're gonna lose this game.
Okay.
By double digits.
I don't know about that.
I do.
They gave the defenders a run for their money and then took a week off. So we actually don't know. We don't know.
What? Okay, let's just look at the scores of the 2 games that the Roughnecks and Renegades played this year.
But they took a week off this week. They didn't try.
Sure, maybe they did. So in that case, let's look at what they did previously against them. When did they play previously?
You mean when they had what's his face at it was like week 1, I think. No, week was it week 4? No. When did they play?
That's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
They played pretty early. It was week 2.
Week 2.
When the Renegades were star quarterback was Drew Plitt.
Okay. The Roughnecks still beat them 23-14 by almost double digits. So
okay. That was so long ago.
I agree. I don't feel good about this Renegades team doing anything. They're 4-6. They snuck into the playoffs because they're in a terrible division. I don't see it happening. Like, I just don't. I get what you're saying about the Roughnecks being probably fraudulent, but like, they're still better than the Renegades.
And also, maybe Luis Perez is a spark for when it matters. Again, they didn't have to try this week. They probably didn't want to show everything they had this week. So
yeah, I mean, maybe. Are you officially doing it?
I'm going to, because I'm going to make it fun while you're here this weekend and root against you.
I mean, we're going to be against each other on the next game as well, so...
Yeah. We'll make it a whole weekend.
All right. Well, you know, you're the one that's going to be living in misery for having to root for them. But let's jump over to Sunday.
It's either you rip off the Band-Aid and just lose the pick now, you know, because the Renegades aren't going to win the championship, and the Roughnecks aren't going to win the championship either. So
that's fair.
We're both going to be sad. It just depends when we're going to be sad.
I'm not picking either of those teams in 2 weeks. I'm not doing it. I'm going to pick whoever wins on Sunday in this game at 3 p.m. over on ESPN and ESPN Plus. We have the Seattle Sea Dragons sitting at 7-3. We've been calling them the second best team in the XFL for weeks now. Heading out to DC, where you know that stadium is going to be sold out, rocking, beer snakes galore, lemons getting tossed on the fields, probably. Face the DC Defenders for the North Championship. I firmly believe whoever wins this game will win in 2 weeks at the XFL Championship in San Antonio. At home, the DC Defenders are 3-point favorites. I kind of like that line. I think it's probably spot on because I do think DC is definitely better. I won't say miles better. I think they're very, very close, very evenly matched. And the Seattle Sea Dragons having to face them on the road in a hostile environment, I think it's going to make life a little tough. But here's the thing. If you're living in DC, go get yourself a ticket and get to this game because tickets are only $25. And I can tell you for dang sure, if I was anywhere close to DC, I would be heading to that stadium because it's going to be rocking. It's going to be a fun environment, and you're going to enjoy every single minute of this fantastic game that we get on Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. With all of that being said, obviously, we're going to be split on this game because I'm taking the 9-1 DC Defenders who lost one game this year by 1 point. 1 point. They were 1 point away from going a perfect 10-0, running the table, probably going undefeated throughout the playoffs, winning the championship. But the Orlando Guardians spoiled all that, and I don't see DC losing again, especially to whoever they have to face in the XFL Championship in 2 weeks after taking care of Seattle. So give me DC. Who you got, man?
You disappoint me.
You knew it was coming.
Come
You
on.
knew it was coming. Like, I will be real. Part of me wants to take Seattle because I do think Seattle could very easily win this game. But I like DC, man. I've always liked DC. DC's been my team since XFL 2.0 3 years ago.
Listen, it is really difficult to beat a team 3 times in a season. And Seattle Sea Dragons are rolling. They got Danuch, they got DeGordon, they got DePearson, they got all of it. They got all of it. They are coming into DC. They're saying, screw your lemons, screw your beer snake, screw your defenders. They are coming out. 3rd time is the charm. Give me Danuch and the Seattle Sea Dragons to win it all because they're going to demolish whoever comes out of the South.
Well, Pete, what happened in week 7, buddy?
Oh, you mean the 1 point loss?
Yeah, the 1 point loss in Seattle, nonetheless. So on the road, DC took care of business. What happened in week 1? Back in week 1 at Audi Field in DC.
When Danuch got splattered by lemons.
Doesn't matter. The lemons are going to be back, baby. I'm telling you. I'm just warning you now. The lemons will be back.
Yeah, but listen, he's ready for it this time. He's had 10 whole weeks to just sit in the locker room and just, all right, chuck him. Just sit there, and that's how he buffed up. That's how he got better throughout the season, was just having lemons
chucked at him.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the game of the week, and this might as well be the XFL Championship game because whoever wins is winning the title 2 weeks from now. And this is, again, if you haven't tuned into a single XFL game, again, what are you doing listening to the podcast? We barely watch the XFL games, so what are you doing listening to us? But if you haven't, tune into this one. This will be a fun one. This is going to be a good one. It's a playoff game. You know that environment's going to be rocking. DC is a fun team to watch. Seattle is a fun team to watch. And I think they're going to put on a show together at Audi Field on Sunday. So I think we're in for a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. That'll be right after we get back from, well, not right after, but we're gonna play some disc golf in the morning, and then I'm gonna laugh at you as the Seattle Sea Dragons beat the DC Defenders. So it'll be a good day.
Let me rephrase that for you, Pete. You're going to lose to me at some disc golf in the morning, because that's what always happens.
Listen, third time's the charm. That's all I'm gonna say.
We've already played. We've already played more than 3 times. All right.
Third time's the charm.
Well, as always, we appreciate you tuning in and listening to us in whatever format you're doing so. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Hopefully, one of these days we'll have more content for you than just the podcast in this form. But who knows? Who knows when that day will be? We're old. We have other things going on in our lives. We don't have time for this social media nonsense. So follow our socials if you so desire. We don't use them that much. I think our Twitter is barely active. But yeah, do all that. Hop into the Discord, though. Hop into the Discord. That's where it's always going off. We're always having good conversation in there about all things sports. So come hang out, come talk some sports. But as always, we appreciate you listening and supporting however you're doing so. And we hope that you continue to do so over the next couple weeks and into next season for the NFL. But as always, I believe that's that.
Ciao.